Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I'm your host, Deshaun Fauntleroy, here with Eyeball Media. Today, we have Coach Mathieson coming on. Did I get your first name as Adam, Coach?
Yeah, absolutely. Adam Mathieson.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you. I got to tell you, man, being associated with Christian Swain and seeing some evergreen football games and following him, watching him at Roosevelt and Columbia River and coming across you guys, I was always impressed with your offenses. And it seemed like you ran a version of the wing T, but it was unique. Was it kind of like from a spread set with the misdirection and pulling guards at the same time?
Absolutely. And it's kind of a long journey, right? I was a run and shoot quarterback in high school and growing up in Spokane, and then had the opportunity to go play quarterback in college for about 20 minutes before I learned that the art of recruiting was to recruit quarterbacks and move them to defensive back. And
Right.
I ended up playing defensive back in college, and you're kind of in the spread world, small college football, and then my early coaching days were spent up in Ferndale, Washington, with a coach named Vic Randall, who was a Hall of Fame football coach who ran the wing T. And man, I marveled at how he was able to kind of move the chess pieces around and manipulate and the gap blocking scheme and whatnot. So as someone who had never been at the line of scrimmage, I was mesmerized by that. And so I was kind of early in my coaching career. And then as I progressed from one stop to the next, I spent a good 20 years trying to figure out how do you marry air raid pass concept, spread concept, screen game, with also that gap blocking that I thought was so efficient in high school football with the wing T stuff. So it was kind of a long journey, and it's funny you bring up Christian because we spent a lot of time in the off season just conversing and trying to, pick his brain even as we married different ideas and obviously, a wonderful coach in his own right. So it's been a fascinating journey. A lot of that offense we kind of left at Mountain View, and we morphed some of it here with our new stop. But football's football. You're trying to get guys the ball in space, right? But
That's correct.
at the end of the day, I do believe high school football is rooted in offensive line play, and you're whether you're a man blocking team or a zone blocking team or a gap blocking team. Usually, it's hard to be good at all three. So you try to figure out what your kids do well.
How did you know you were going to get into coaching? When you were younger, being an athlete, is it just something you always thought, or was it just blessed upon you?
It is a great question, and I don't know. Probably lack of career planning, right? Sends you back into just you keep doing what you've always done. You've been going to school since you're 5 years old. You've been playing sports since you're 5 years old. So you're like, I don't know what else to do. I might as well do that. But in all seriousness, my parents were just super hardworking. My dad was a warehouseman growing up and worked two shifts, and I had a huge. I was influenced greatly by my teachers and coaches, and they were the ones always giving me rides home and staying after practice with me and opening the weight room up early. And so I think I always just had a connection with those people. And as I got older and I started progressing through high school, it was probably natural for me to feel like that was just my place in the world was to give back the same way that so many others gave to me.
Yes, watching you and hearing about you over at Mountain View for a while. I might have even seen you on one of those wing T coaching tutorials on Facebook. Does that sound familiar? I
Yeah,
think
I got a whole video series and things like that out there now. I kind of went down that road, and the Glazier clinics in the coaching world.
yes.
Glazier clinics has been really good to me. I've been on the national circuit for a good decade now. They send me around the country to speak, and it's been a huge blessing from that standpoint. But yeah, the I've actually never watched one of the video series because I'm mortified of what I might sound like or look like presenting. But it's been a positive experience.
Yeah, this is something I maybe seen maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago. And what I wanted to say is just based on when you were at Mountain View, how did you create that culture? What tools did you use to create such a winning culture and a successful culture there?
Think probably behind me, it's probably written backwards there, but we've got a foundational pyramid. John Wooden had his pyramid of success with 31 pyramids, and he's much more intelligent than I. So our big thing was at the end of the day, we wanted to love kids, right? And I wanted to hire a staff that was going to love kids. And when we first got there, we didn't have a staff of vast football knowledge. It was we're going to find people that the kids want to be around. And so I firmly believe it was our job to love the kids, and it was the kids' job to love each other. And then preparation prepares the middle of the pyramid, right? We were going to work really hard, and we were going to prepare ourselves in the season and the off season. Like it wouldn't stop for us from that standpoint. And so we were going to prepare the kids and not leave a lot of stones unturned. And then we're going to celebrate the kids as they compete. And I think so many times we get so caught up on the competition side of it. And I really do believe that if we love our kids and we prepare our kids, then the competition takes care of itself. And that's not really coach speak. I think that's life speak, right? If you care about the people you're affiliated with and you love those people you come in contact with, and you're prepared, you work hard, you pay attention to details, you're organized, then usually the competition of life takes care of itself. And so we worked really, really hard. We were intentional, right? I think we spent so much time as coaches in playbooks and in off-season training and all types of stuff. But do we have an intentional plan for culture building, right? We all talk about culture and what's it look like, but are you intentional with it, or do you just hope it happens, right? Every program has culture, and it either happens on accident or it happens on purpose. And so we wanted to hire people that love kids. We're in the building. You bring up Christian, and I think he's learned a lot even as he's been in Washington, and he's built a staff now of 6, 7, 8 guys in his building, and he
Yes.
starts seeing the fruits of connectivity a little bit as he's built that program. And so I still think that's the best way to build a high school football program is get people that love kids, that are positive, that are encouraging, and get them around kids so kids want to be engaged. Kids don't have to play football the way that maybe they did in the 80s or 90s. There's
That's
lots
right.
of options. There's lots of options for kids. And Coach Peterson, the coach from Boise State in Washington, told me once, he said, Adam, you've got to coach football as if it's optional for kids. And from that standpoint, I took that to like, you've really got to invest in them. You've got to build relationships. You've got to want it. They've got to want to be there for more even than just a sport. And
That's
so
right.
we were very intentional about that at Mountain View.
Doing such a great job at Mountain View, you end up leaving, you going to Camas. I worked with a couple of Coach Eagles kids when he was
Yeah.
there. You're in a different program now, a story program, a history program. I remember watching Brian Kelly and Cole Zarconi play there. I think that was 2015. You got 5 or 6 thousand people at every home game. You
Yeah.
know, how do you build upon a culture or keep something going that's been in place for so long?
Yeah. The first thing is to figure out how they got it where it was, right? Like when I was the head coach at Ferndale High School in 2003, we hosted Camas in a playoff game up there, a first round playoff game. And Bob Holman was the head coach. And it was the first time they had been in the state playoffs in 26, 27 years. And so, from 2003 to 2024, the last 2 decades, there's been a lot of positive that came out of Camas football. And so you end up, you touch base with the Bob Holmans and the John Eagles. And we've got some wonderful assistant coaches that were here during that transition. And the first thing is you try to figure out, well, what they do to get there. And then you figure out as an individual, okay, like the program doesn't need change, right? Like there's enhancement and hopefully I can bring certain things to the program, but you go, okay, what has the program done really well? What's the root of the program? And to do that, there's some, you have to humble yourself a little bit and go, okay, like it's not about me in this standpoint, like how the program get here. And let's ask a lot of questions and let's ask the players and let's ask the community and let's ask the coaches that have been here, what makes Camas football? And you really have to listen to that and then go, okay, how do we elevate it from, a regional state power to something that is, West Coast power,
Yeah.
right? Like there's
Yeah.
still layers to go from that standpoint. And so you go, what do you need to do to get to that next level from that standpoint? And that's kind of where we're at now. And so we spend a lot more time, I've been here, just 4 or 5 months from that standpoint. And you do a lot more listening than dictating things. And then at some point, after you've listened enough, then you kind of start steering the ship in a direction that you hope that can take it to another level.
So you guys played this past Friday. How did you do this past week?
Yeah, we were up, played another top 10 team. Coach Matsumoto up there at Lincoln High School, who does a fantastic job and started well. I think it was 27-28-0 at halftime or something. Defense is playing really well, and we're starting to find ourselves on offense. It's one of those things. Coach Kilty's been here a long time as defense coordinator, and you talk just football wise, Coach Kilty, Coach Harden, Coach Phillips, some of those guys on defense, and you want to keep that consistency. And so, we maintain the integrity of what we've been doing for going back through Coach Eagle on defense. And then on offense, you take what was really good about what they did, and then you try to tweak it with a couple of new
Yes.
things here or there. And we hired a couple coaches from Union High School that have been with Coach Rowe. That I thought Union was one of the premier teams that I'd ever played against with their screen game and some of those concepts. And so you bring those guys in and go, hey, your specific purpose is to teach us the split zone and the screen game because you were so efficient at it. And then you got Coach Hathaway, who had been the head coach, but also worked with Coach Eagle. And you're like, okay, talk to me about the stuff that you guys did that the kids are really good at. That it's kind of the root of the youth program and things like that. And then you bring a few of my Mountain View people over, and you try, you put it in this pot and you try to blend it and stir it. And I feel like we're getting a little better traction on offense. Kind of the more we talk, the more you communicate. Game night's such a different deal, right? As you're trying to hear the different voices and get the different calls out and stuff. But it's been fun. It's been a fun journey. It's been a good 3 weeks of just kind of growth from a game one to game two to game three. And we've got explosive kids all over the field, and that's helpful. And then we're pretty deep. We've only got probably Nico Spears, the only kid in our program that is like a legitimate, like two-way guy all the time. Everyone else we can sub, and we're playing 25, 28, 30 guys on a Friday night, which is a big deal in a long season.
Yes, most definitely. Speaking about the season and your last game, when it comes to pep talk, what you're saying to the kids before hitting that field, what does that sound like?
Yeah, it's a good question. It probably sounds different every week, but I think football is still pretty simple at its core, right? I mean, big people beat up little people and fast people run away from slow people. And at the end of the day, you're trying to figure out those matchups throughout the week, the chess match part, right? Like, where can you be physical? Where can you be explosive? And then my big thing has always been, right, if you go out there and you out hit and you out hustle and you're more mentally tough for 48 minutes, then usually you have a chance to see where you're at the end. And I feel like we've done that. We've got a physical football team. We've got a team that runs the football. We've got a team that enjoys playing the game of football. And you stay together, stay connected, believe in one another for 48 minutes, then usually stuff takes care of itself. And it's been pretty fun the first 3 weeks just to kind of see all that come together. And we got 28 coaches that we're trying to figure out how to morph and communicate and get the right information to kids. But the coaches work their tails off. The kids are super receptive to coaching. I love this the sideline. Both the last two away games we've played, we've been the chain crew from the visitors is on our sideline, and both of them have shook our hands at the end and said, "Man, you guys are really classy." And we spend a lot of time coaching our kids during the game, and that's when you're clicking because you can make those in-game adjustments and get information to the kids right away.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, man. So it sounds like, some of your core tenets going back to what's behind you is love, prepare, and celebrate the kids. And it sounds like you've continued, that mantra or that theme based on where you're at now in time and space.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've learned, or what I feel like anyway, when we left Mountain View, and then we actually I spent a couple weeks at Union High School with Roe a spring ago, so I guess a year and a half ago, and then even at Camas last year, just kind of coming on board and helping Jack as an assistant the best I could. Is kids are kids, right? And what makes Camas unique, I think, is the community. There's not very many in Washington large schools 2,000 plus kids that are one horse communities still, right? You're going through
Yes.
Mount Si, Lake Stevens, Camas. Like most of the one horse towns are going to be Linden, Anacortes, or they're going to be more 1A, 2A, 3A type schools. So the community here, that piece is so neat, and it harkens me back to my Ferndale days. But at the end of the day, kids are still kids. And there's a larger volume from that standpoint here. But kids want to be loved. They want to be coached. They want to be held accountable. They want to know what the standard is. And then they want to reach those standards, right? And so the more clear you can articulate, like, hey, here's what the standard is. And it's not a standard, even God bless what we've done for 2 decades, but this group has its own standard that they're striving to. And I really do believe that if we love one another and we prepare like crazy. I mean, this group, they get to the weight room at 7 a.m. every morning, and they lift before school. And then we've got, lunch meetings, and then we practice after school, and then the defense watches film after practice. I mean, the kids are in it from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Thursday, and then games on Friday. And so, from that standpoint, the kids have risen to every challenge. And if we can continue to kind of raise that bar for them, my belief is they'll continue to elevate themselves to that mark.
Yeah, I like that, man. I'll
Yeah.
be honest with you. coming to see some of the Camas games in like 2014, 2015. It's the closest things to that quote unquote Friday Night Lights that I've seen. I'm out there, I'm in the stands watching. I think the dad that I knew at the time, he was down on the field. So I'm in the stands by myself, and I see a guy with his daughter. She's an infant, like maybe 1 or 2 years old. And he was like, "Who's your boy out here?" And I'm like, "I'm just coming to support a kid that I train." I'm like, "Who's your son?" He's
Yeah.
like, "I don't have any kids out here. I'm just coming to support." And I thought that that was really unique. A guy that really didn't know a lot about football, but was just supporting the Camas community. And I
Uh,
always felt that that was really impressive.
and I feel like that's probably my biggest role here. I mean, people talk about, hey, you're at Camas High School, you can accomplish this, that, or the other, and you're like, eh. At the end of the day, like right or wrong, not to minimize that, but it's the community connection that's so important for me. I thought we could win a lot of games at Mountain View. I mean, from that standpoint, like I didn't think we couldn't win a state championship there either. And so people will make the comment, "Hey, you're at Camas now. It's this that you can," and then you're like, eh. At the end of the day, the community connection is a big deal. We've got wonderful coaches. When I was at Mountain View, I ran the offense, I ran the defense, I ran the special teams. I did much more football. Here, the first thing we established was youth camps. In the springtime, we're able to, based on some WA rules, we can't coach middle school kids and things like that in the off season, but we can coach the elementary kids. So we ran K through 5 youth camps
Okay.
in April in our field house. I mean, it just, and it sold out in 4 days. We ran, sessions of 24 kids just based on the size of the facility, the field house we have, an indoor batting cage area with turf on it. And that sold out in 4 days. And so to do that in the spring, and then we ran another youth camp in the summer that sold out. And we did a regional quarterback thing, and we ended up having 68 quarterbacks from around the region sign up. And so just to like tap into those people in the community to go, we are here for your kids, whether you end up being a football player or not. Right. Like our goal is we want you engaged in football. We want you engaged with the youth league and things like that. But if football isn't your deal, then we want you in the front row cheering your friends on like crazy. Right. And to me, that's the Friday Night Lights part, right? Is that football is still the greatest unifier, right? Like we got 150 kids in our program. We've got like 200 kids in our band. We've got, 30 cheerleaders and 30 dance kids, and you get 600 students there at your game. Well, all of a sudden, two thirds of your school is there on a Friday night, right? And then you add the community people that are
That's
just
right.
like walking down the street and stuff, and you go, it's a special place, and that those are the differences. To be honest, I mean, I think the kids are very similar, but that community feel and that connection, and when you're playing for Camas instead of your local suburban high school, then I feel like it's a little bit different.
Yes, sir. As we get into the 2 minute warning, coach, what I want to ask you is if you're speaking, speak to the kid that's getting out of college. He's going back to his community to coach at his local high school. He wants to coach. Some people I've met in the past that I've interviewed, I'm like, this guy's going to be a head coach. Now they're head coaches. What advice would you give to the young coach that aspires to be a head coach in high school football one day?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that's an awesome question. Couple things. Learn the best you can offensive line play. Right? I mean, you look at Coach Ladd down at De La Salle and whatnot. I mean, high school football still comes back to the line of scrimmage. But I would probably my main advice would be quick to listen and slow to speak. As a young person, I had wonderful mentors. Right, at 27 years old, I was the head coach at Ferndale High School. I had a quarterback that went on to be the eighth pick in the draft. I won more games at 27 than I did for the next 10 years during the season. And it's because I had wonderful kids and wonderful people around me. At the end of the day, that's what you want to do is be quick to listen, slow to speak, understand. I had Vic Randall, Hall of Fame coach, as a mentor, Bob Ames as a mentor, Rob Smith, who won 100 games at Western Washington and Humboldt State. Find people in your life that you can learn from and spend a lot more time listening maybe than sharing your ideas, and work your tail off behind closed doors. Do every job that you can, right? Like be the guy that turns the water key on, right? That we in coaching we always talk about see a need, fill a need, right? And at the end of the day, like be the guy that becomes dependable because you can get the bag set for practice. You can, print off the scouting report. I mean, the more stuff that you can do behind the scenes, um, as head coaches, right? We're creatures of habit, and we will surround ourselves with people that we know work really hard, love kids, buy into the stuff that we buy into. But if you played high school football, you played college football, for the most part, you probably have a relative football base. But I would challenge yourself to educate yourself on the stuff that maybe you didn't know, and that was me, right? I was a skill person, and so to educate myself on line play. But man, I spent a lot of time hanging out with those veteran coaches and being mentored by those guys.
Yeah, speaking of line play, Christian, he basically lended me a 13 disc DVD set of Rick Stewart's Pistol Wing.
Yeah,
And the beauty that I got out of it, coach, was the line play.
yeah.
And people will talk so down on it like it's very basic, but the line play is quite sophisticated. You know,
Absolutely. And to be able to understand the difference, right, in the man schemes, the gap schemes, and the zone schemes and stuff, that to me, that if you can understand offensive line, then you can coach on the defensive side of the ball and you can coach on the offensive side of the ball. If you can really understand that part. And it's so intricate, right? Like, I marvel at the people when you go to a clinic and the way that they can present it. And it's like, oh, you have made the complex simple. And
simple. Yes. That's what I found out of Rick Stewart's material. Again, man, appreciate you coming on. I know this has been what, about a year. I know
yeah,
you've been busy. We had planned this before, but it's finally good to pin you down. For me, myself personally, like getting a chance to meet you and see your face and hear your voice, man. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate you coming on, taking time away from the family on a Sunday afternoon.